All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This is your boy, CJ. Okay, we've got a lot to cover today. So, a member of British Parliament, Robert Jenrick, says that Britain's ex-colonies need to be more grateful to Britain and stop asking for reparations. So, this is the latest development that has occurred ever since the so-called Commonwealth Leadership Summit that took place almost 2 weeks ago. And because we're asking for money owed to us, because we're asking for the restitution to Africa at the hand of Britain for slavery and colonialism, now we have members of British Parliament coming out to be offensive, to say things like ex-colonies of Britain should be grateful to their former colonial masters for enslaving them, for colonizing them, and a whole bunch of nonsense that he puts out that I'm going to talk about in this video. So according to him, if it weren't for the British people, right, Africa wouldn't be where it is today. And my question is exactly where is that we're so proud of? What countries in Africa is so proud of where they are today? It is because of the British people and the British government that Africa is where it is today. So I'm not sure what he's talking about in terms of what we need to be proud of. Maybe we need to be proud of the fact that we all speak English. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's what he's talking about. Maybe we need to be proud of the fact that we wear suits. Or maybe it's the fact that they brought religion to our world. Maybe that's what we should be proud about, right? So I'm trying to understand what this man's argument is. What it is that Britain brought to Africa and black people that black people should be proud of. But we're going to discuss this in this video today because here's another mind, right? We're going to look into the mind of such kind of white male, arrogant and racist who think that somehow they're a gift to the world. When they've committed atrocities all over the world, then they want to tell everybody that you need to thank us because if it weren't for us, you wouldn't have what you have. What exactly is that? So we've got a lot that we're going to discuss in this video. But before I go into that, I want to give a shout out real quickly to at Chef EDE1 for your $10 donation on one of my videos. I truly appreciate that very much. So kudos to you, my man. Okay, so let's talk about this because we've got quite a lot to talk about. We've got quite a lot to talk about. All right, let me read this article. It says right here, Britain's ex-colonies should be more grateful. Right? This is the article that just came out right after the so-called Commonwealth Leadership Summit. All right, let me read this. Britain's former colonies should be thanking their old imperial masters rather than pressing for slavery reparations. The man hoping to lead Britain's Conservative Party declared. This man is Robert Jenrick. He's a member of parliament, right? This is the type of people that have enslaved and caused chaos in the world, and they have the audacity to talk about that today and open their mouth to say that we should be grateful to them for the chaos they caused in the world. A number of former British colonies in the Commonwealth have banded together to request financial reparations for sufferings at the hand of the British, particularly as a result of slave trade. Over the weekend, Commonwealth leaders agreed that the time has come for a conversation about reparations for the slave trade. Jenrick, who faced off against Kemi Badenoch for the Tory crown this weekend, acknowledged that British Empire was complex and committed crimes of terrible scale, including slavery, the displacement of people, and military aggression. So at least he agreed on that one. At least he acknowledged that. That is what we're asking for reparations for, in addition to colonialism. So I want to hear what his argument is. I want to hear what he's talking about in terms of we need to be grateful. We need to be thanking them. Thanking them for what? I need you to tell me exactly what the African people and African countries need to be thanking white people for. Former colonists recognized that British systems of governance was the best in the world for promoting peace and prosperity, he says. Can you imagine this? Let me read that one again. Let me read that one again. He's saying that former colonies recognized that British system of governance was the best in the world for promoting peace and prosperity, he says. Let me go ahead and put a pin on that one, and we'll come back to it. All right? We'll come back to that one because that one packs a punch. Huh? Because I want to know what British system in Africa works today. What was the British system of governance? Is it democracy? Is it the so-called democracy that the West and Europe goes around imposing on everyone? Is that what is working for Africa today? Right? Is that the stuff that he's talking about, that the colonies recognized that the British system was the best for them? We're going to talk about that so-called system and how that has really helped Africa. Let's keep going. Keir Starmer was among 56 heads of government who signed a document at the Commonwealth Summit that acknowledged calls for discussion on reparations justice for the abhorrent transatlantic slave trade. Writing in the Daily Mail, January pushed back at the Labour government, stating that Prime Minister Keir Starmer spent the weekend doing what he does best, capitulating to those determined to tear our country down. Okay, so it goes on to say here that a report published last year by the University of West Indies concluded that UK owed more than 18 trillion pounds in reparations for its role in slavery in 14 Caribbean countries. That's just the Caribbean countries. Okay, we haven't even talked about African countries. African countries who were ravaged, destroyed as a result of slavery, colonialism. We haven't talked about that. That's more than 18 trillions because that was the hub where they got all the labor from to build their countries, right? That was the place they got it from. And they left that place desolate. They burnt the place. They destroyed the whole place. They took the manpower out of that whole place, left the economy in Africa ravaged and desolate. And then they came back during colonialism, colonized the place. So we haven't talked about that, and we're going to talk about that in this video. The report also was backed by Patrick Robinson, a judge who sits on the International Court of Justice. Starmer, who previously said that the UK will not be paying reparations and will not be issuing any apology for Britain's role in slave trade. Right? This is the guy that just got elected into office while at the Commonwealth Summit in Samoa. This is a guy, right, who is the new prime minister, talking this nonsense. Okay, so let's talk about this, because here is that yet another arrogance of a white male who thinks that he's God's gifts to earth. And you're hearing a man talk about that ex-British colonies, right, should be grateful, should be thanking them. We ought to be over there thanking them, being at their feet, saying, thank you, Master, for coming to bring us out of our cave-like behavior. Thank you, Master, for coming to rescue us from us being lost over the centuries. Thank you, Master, for coming to teach us how to speak, how to eat, how to walk upright. Thank you, Master, for coming to show us the way. This is what this fool is saying. Because when he's talking about we need to be grateful, I'm asking, what are we supposed to be grateful for? Let me pick that one point that I want to talk about, where he says, former colonies recognized that British system of governance was the best in the world for promoting peace and prosperity. Let's talk about that one. Let's talk about the so-called peace and prosperity that the British system so-called promoted in the world that we should be thankful for. Because I'm guessing this is what his main point is. Where is the peace in the world? Name me one country that England went and colonized that has remained peaceful and prosperous today. I'll wait. Name me anywhere. Forget Africa. Name me anywhere in the world. Because I'll give you some instances where the British has gone in and their hands have caused the problem that we're having today. Nigeria is an example. When the British took over Nigeria back in the 1800s, and when they left it in 1960, the British, like many other Europeans and their way of rule, is to leave the place worse than they found it. They've always used a system where they hand over power to the minority in the country to destabilize the place. It is a system known with Europeans, where when they leave the place, after they've colonized, after they've destroyed the place, and they're leaving, all throughout the 60s, when you find countries who are so-called given independence, when they left power and they left leadership to the minority to govern the majority. Nigeria today is going through what it's going through today because of the exact same system that he's talking about that we should be proud of. When they left, they handed Nigeria over to the North, who were the minority in Nigeria, to govern the majority of other tribes in Nigeria. This is what has been causing the problem in Nigeria to today. Is this what we're supposed to be proud of? Is this the type of system that we're supposed to be happy of? They knew what they were doing. You see, when they came to Nigeria back in the days, back in the 1800s, they saw the tribes and they knew the tribes exactly. They knew what the quality of each tribe. They knew the ones that were very educated. They knew the ones that were very hardworking. We see, when they came and got us as slaves and stole slaves from Nigeria, they stole the most hard and strong working ones. They took most of the Igbos as slaves. They took the Yorubas as slaves because these were able-bodied men who would stand and defend their land no matter what. But when they were leaving Nigeria, they didn't give the country and leadership to those tribes. They left it to the minority tribe in Nigeria, which is right. White Nigeria today is having the issues it's having because the minority is set to govern the majority. Not anywhere in the world. They will never do that in their own country. See, in their own country, majority always carries the vote. You will never find anywhere in the West or Europe where the minority voice dominates the majority. You will never find it. But you'll find it in Africa. You'll find them do this in Africa, where they will use the young to rule over the old. They will use the young person to dominate the old, knowing fully well what that will cause. You'll find the same thing in Rwanda. This was the exact same thing that happened in Rwanda. The genocide that happened in Rwanda in 1994 was as a result of the Belgians doing exactly the same thing. We're talking about Europeans right now. When the Belgians came after the Germans had colonized Rwanda and the Belgians took over, they left the place to the Tutsis, who are the minority in that country, to rule over the Hutus. The Hutus who had always dominated the place. And the Belgians knew this when they were leaving. They knew that that was going to cause problems. Again, talking about destabilizing African people and making sure that African people never live in peace. The same peace that he wants us to be grateful to them for. The Belgians left the Tutsis in charge, knowing fully well that what that will cause. The same thing they will never do in their own country. See, in their own country, the majority vote is what elects their presidents. In their own country, the majority is what the rule of order is. When they take a vote, they always make sure that 60% of the vote is what they will go off. Parliament has spoken. They've never gone with a system where the minority in their country, in any sector, in any office, in any government political sector, governs or dictates for the majority. But not in Africa. They do the exact opposite. Because their job is to destabilize black people. It's only with black people, right? That the type of governments that will never occur in their country, they will allow them to do it in Africa because they want to cause the civilization. This fool wants us to be grateful for that type of leadership. The so-called democratic governance has never worked for Africa. If I'm lying, leave it in the comment section. Africa today is destabilized because Africa is following some set of democratic process placed on them by white Europeans who don't practice the same thing in their country. Who don't practice the same thing in their country. These people have had their hands in our countries, destabilizing our countries, destabilizing our system, coming to tear down what was there thousands of years prior to their even existence. What has always been something that governed us prior to their existence, they came in and tore it down for us and gave us a new set of existence, which today is causing a type of chaos and mayhem in Africa. And this fool right here tells us that we ought to be grateful for it and not ask for reparations. You're a liar. No, we reject any form of European democracy. We reject it because it's not our way. Because that's not the same thing they practice in their country. They go around killing countries, destroying countries, enslaving people, sanctioning countries who do not play by their own democracy. Countries who had their own set of systems that have ruled them and worked for them for thousands of years before these minority Europeans showed up. They show up with their religion, they show up with their system, and now the whole world got to go with what they say. Talk about dictatorship. And then they have the audacity to call us and call people dictators. Think about that for a second. They have the audacity to call everybody else dictators while they have been the dictators. They've beaten religion into us. They've beaten their own way of democracy into us. They've beaten their own system into us. They've changed our names. They've changed our orders. They've changed our culture. They've changed everything. They beat it into us. We didn't take a vote on this. Yeah, let's talk about the democracy. We didn't take a vote on this. They like to talk about, let's vote on things. Voting is the way of the people, right? Okay, did we vote to have these things imposed on us? Did we vote to have our wealth taken out of our countries into your country? You see, if you go to England today, this despicable country called England, right? When you go to their Bank of England, our wealth and gold is in their bank. Our wealth is in their bank. Did we vote to have that wealth stolen into their bank? The queen, so-called wicked woman, who I believe is in Hades right now. She's at the bottom of Hades right now. She walked in the Bank of England. Right? Look at her. Walking the whole Bank of England with our gold, stolen gold, the bank. So even while this country is bankrupt on paper, they're not producing anything in their country with their citizens. Their citizens are too lazy to produce anything to match the GDP or at least be able to give them a surplus. So they can rely on the stolen wealth from our countries, from Africa, that they can then use to build themselves back up, even though they're bankrupt on paper. Right? But we are supposed to be thankful that they came. So in other words, this is the excuse they use. In other words, the gold, our gold that is in their bank, which was stolen, right, years ago through colonialism, stolen, is for them, in their mind, it's their reward for coming to teach us the nonsense they taught us over the years. I don't think so. You're going to pay us reparations. You owe us reparations for slavery. You owe reparations for colonizing Africa. You owe us reparations for all the atrocities you've done in the world. You owe us reparations, and you're going to pay it. Yeah, you're going to pay it. You can tell that it's striking a chord when you have a member of so-called parliament, right, come out and start talking this nonsense. You can tell that they are really pissed off at this whole reparations conversation. No, you've not even begun to get pissed off yet, right? Because that is a conversation that we're bringing to your doorsteps every single time. Reparations, reparations, reparations. You're going to pay it. You're going to pay it. You're going to pay it to the Caribbean countries. You're going to pay it to Africa. You're going to pay it to black people. Because you owe black people the debt. And you're a thief and a liar and you owe us money. There's nothing, in my opinion, nothing that any black person or African country ought to be grateful for to European, especially to British people. Nothing. Because the demise that we have today, the sufferings that we have today, is as a result of them. The sufferings in Africa is as a result of them. It's not enough for them to come in and grab us and steal us as slaves. It's not enough, right? It wasn't enough to do that over the 1700s, 1600s, as far back as 1600s, all through the 1700s, all through the 1800s. It wasn't enough. They had to go back there and colonize the place. And that's still not enough, even after they left, so-called during the independence. They're still there today, robbing the countries. And this fool tells me and you, right, that we ought to be thanking them. Yeah, we ought to be thanking them for coming to our countries. No, we don't thank you for it. We curse the day you showed up in Africa. Africa's sons and daughters today curse the day you step foot in Africa. The universe curse the day you stepped foot in Africa. There's nothing about your footprint or your presence in Africa that was ever good to that continent or to black people. What black group you know today can truly say what black group, whether the ones in your country, whether the ones here in the United States or the ones in Africa, what black group today can actually say, except the idiots who are at the beck and call of massa, and they grovel at their foot, and they want the love from the massa that will tell you that slavery or the influence or the presence of white folks benefited black people. You tell me what black person in their right mind will say that today, knowing fully well that their generation and their parents and their grandparents they came from have suffered at the hands of Europeans all over the world. You tell me what black person in their right mind, if I'm lying, leave it in the comment section. Leave it in the comment section. So, I'm going to say these in my close. The British government owe us reparations. The British government are going to pay reparations to Africa and to the Caribbean countries. The British government have a debt they got to pay for slavery, for colonialism, for the atrocities they committed in Africa and to black people around the world. The British government is responsible for 60%, if not more, of the world's issues today. The British is responsible for this, and they owe us money, and they're going to have to pay this. You're going to pay these reparations to every black family in Africa, around the world, everywhere you touched, that you brought death, you brought chaos, you brought destabilization, you brought the problem that exists today. Every single one of those places, you're going to pay reparations. And you're going to have to start by returning the gold that you stole from us, that are right now housed at your bank. Those golds, African golds, start with that. Return that back to Ghana, return that back to Nigeria, return that back to Mali, return that back to the Congo, return that back to South Africa. You're going to have to return those golds that you stole from all those places back to their colonies, to the former colonies. To return it back. And then we got to start talking about the money you owe us for the damage you caused as a result of colonialism and slavery. That is the conversation that we're going to need to have. We haven't started having those conversations yet. We've just started. And if you're sick of it, you're going to be sick of it even more. Because we're not going to let out. You're going to pay us our money. Because you don't get to cause that kind of problems in the world. Walk away. And then tell us that we ought to be grateful for what? This guy's a joke. This guy's a joke. So anyway, thank you all for watching. Please like the video, share the content, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time.
Det finns ingen annan där som kan stå här by my side, oh why. Sättet du rör på det får mig att dö för det baby. För de här yardis, de vill ju bara dra ner oss. Men du är fett och vanlig. Och det jag lägger all min tid och jag vill ha det. Du får mig känna safety. Jag kan nog leda baby. Och jag kommer aldrig ändra.